I wasn't born with a silver spoon, at least, not that I can remember. You see, the story of my life didn't start where most stories do. Not in a hospital room surrounded by family, or in a warm home with lullabies and baby blankets. No, my story begins on the floor of a tiny roadside clinic, with strangers rushing, yelling, a nurse holding my tiny bruised body in her arms, and a woman who claimed to have found me near a burning car wreck just outside the city. I was only 3 years old. And from that moment forward, I wasn't Olivia, daughter of the president. I was just Liv, the quiet little girl raised by strangers in a part of the world where dreams didn't grow. They were buried. The woman who took me in was named Mama Joy. She had no husband, no riches, and no education past the 6th grade. But she had hands that worked, a voice that soothed, and a soul that never once made me feel like I didn't belong. She didn't know who I was. I didn't either. All I knew was that when I woke up crying from dreams I didn't understand, of helicopters, red carpets, and people calling my name, Mama Joy would pull me close and whisper, "You're safe now. You're mine." And for the longest time, that was enough. We lived in a poor village, the kind where dirt roads cracked beneath your feet and water came from old rusted pumps. But it was home. I shared a room with 3 other girls, all orphans like me. We didn't have toys or tablets. We had stories. We told each other tales under the moonlight, dreams of who we'd be, where we'd go, what we'd wear if we were rich for just one day. They'd laugh and say they'd buy castles or fly in planes. Me? I just wanted to sit at a dinner table with people who knew my name. When I turned 10, I started noticing things. My skin was a little lighter than most of the girls. My eyes had a sharpness to them, like someone who had seen more than her age allowed. And sometimes when men came into the village from the city, they'd pause when they saw me. They'd whisper. One even asked Mama Joy, "Are you sure she's yours?" That night, I sat in the dark and stared at my reflection in a cracked mirror. Who am I? At 13, I began working. Mama Joy had a small food stall. She taught me how to cook, how to bargain, how to stand tall in a market full of loud men. And most importantly, how to speak with heart, not fear. But I also started to notice something else. Every time a politician came on the old TV in the community center, my chest would tighten. Not from fear, but from something else. Something I didn't understand. Until one day, everything changed. It was a rainy afternoon. I was 16, and the TV was playing a national address from the president. I didn't care much, I barely listened. But then I saw her, a woman, standing beside the president, tall, elegant, graceful, her eyes, my eyes. She wore a brooch shaped like a hummingbird, the same shape I had seen in my dreams since I was small. And then the president spoke. He said something about a daughter, a tragedy, a loss he never recovered from. "We never found her," he said. "She would have been 16 today." I froze. The world around me melted. That night I searched through the only box of belongings Mama Joy had from the day I arrived. Inside, a torn piece of fabric and a charm. A tiny silver hummingbird. I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because I knew, deep in my soul, something was missing from my life. And now I had a clue. At 17, I left the village. I told Mama Joy I'd come back, and she didn't stop me. She just held me and said, "No matter where you go, no matter who you find, you'll always be my girl." The city was nothing like my village. Fast, loud, ruthless. I worked jobs nobody wanted, cleaning offices, selling water on the roadside, sleeping in shelters. hiding my tears in public toilets. But I had one mission: find out who I was. I searched hospital records. I talked to journalists. I even visited an orphanage in the capital where someone said a child matching my description was brought in 14 years ago, but lost in paperwork. Doors slammed, people laughed, some called me crazy, but I never gave up, and then, one day, I got close. A woman named Elisa, a retired government nurse, heard my story and called me to her home. She sat me down, looked into my eyes, and went silent. Then she whispered, "I was there, the day they brought a girl in after a highway explosion. I remember the eyes. I remember the charm." She opened her drawer and showed me a copy of a hospital report. No name, just unidentified female child. Approx. Age 3. Found near presidential highway crash site. My hands shook. I took that paper and walked straight to the gates of the presidential residence. Not to demand, not to beg, just to be seen. They turned me away the first time, the second, the third. But on the fourth visit, someone from inside noticed. A woman who had worked in the residence for over 20 years. She looked at me the way you look at someone you lost long ago. And then, everything happened so fast. DNA tests, media coverage. Headlines, president's daughter found after 14 years. People called it a miracle. Some called it a lie. But when the results came in, the truth was undeniable. I was Olivia, the lost daughter, the girl nobody remembered, but who never forgot who she wanted to be. But the story didn't end with hugs and palaces. I returned to a life I was supposed to have, but no longer fit into. People judged the way I talked, the way I ate, the way I refused to act like a spoiled child. I wasn't raised on carpets. I was raised on grit. And I decided, if I was going to wear the name Olivia again, I would rebuild it my way. Not with privilege, but with purpose. I went back to school. I started a foundation for village girls, named it Mama Joy House. I made sure no girl would ever feel forgotten like I once did. Because I may have been born in power, but I was raised in struggle, and that, more than any bloodline, is what shaped me. This is just the beginning. I was 16 the first time someone told me I looked different, not in the way children tease or adults try to flatter. No, it was the kind of different that lingered. A neighbor, old and sharp-eyed, had said it while watching me carry water. "You got royal cheekbones, girl. You sure you ain't from some palace?" We laughed. But something about the way she stared at me, like she was digging through time, stayed with me. I had always known I didn't quite fit, not just because I didn't resemble Mama Isi or my siblings. It was in the way I carried questions in my eyes, in how my nightmares weren't like theirs. Mine were full of marble floors and unfamiliar voices calling my name. "Olivia, where are you?" I started asking questions. I searched for my birth papers. Nothing. Mama Essie would turn silent or conveniently busy whenever I asked, so I waited until the day I overheard her crying. I tried to save her, I really did. That broke me. Who was I? Later that week, I searched her old metal trunk in the attic. That's when I found it, an envelope, sealed for years. Inside, a baby bracelet that read, "Olivia," a government hospital tag, and a letter. A letter never meant for my eyes. It was from a man, my real father, the president, my father. My hands trembled. My heart stopped, started again. I read it 20 times. I didn't understand it all at once. But I knew this. I wasn't just a random girl from a poor community. I was the missing daughter of a man who once ruled a country. I was Olivia. I wanted answers. But I didn't confront Mama Essie. I was torn between rage and gratitude. She had raised me with nothing, yet gave me everything. But I had to leave. I didn't run away. I walked into my destiny. At 17, I left with nothing but my name, that bracelet, and a heart full of storms. I slept in bus stations, cleaned floors in bakeries just to eat. People laughed when I said I wanted to be a businesswoman. You? You don't even have shoes without holes. I made a promise to myself. I will become someone so powerful, my last name will make people pause. But I didn't want to be powerful just for pride. I wanted to make sure no child ever gets lost the way I was. No little girl would ever grow up without knowing who she was, what she could become. My journey started with scraps. I taught myself everything, marketing, branding, negotiation, by borrowing old books from a church library. I watched free videos in internet cafes and took online business courses with money I made selling handmade soap on the streets. The hustle wasn't just real, it was war. There were days I didn't eat, days I wanted to go back. But I remembered that letter. I remembered that name, Olivia, and I pushed harder. By 19, I had my first client, a local restaurant that needed help with social media. I charged them barely enough for bus fare, but when their sales doubled, they paid me extra. That moment was everything. Not the money, the respect. That's when Live Brands was born. I registered the business legally, used recycled laptops, and hired my first 2 team members, other girls from my community who believed they had nothing to offer. I made them believe again. We were not just building a brand, we were building a new legacy. Word spread. Our clients grew from small shops to real estate developers, clothing lines, tech startups. By 22, I got invited to my first global conference in a major city. They introduced me as the Queen of Grit and Growth. But I still hadn't gone back. I hadn't faced the truth. Hadn't faced my real father. When I finally did, I didn't knock on his door like a lost child. I walked into his private event, invited as a keynote speaker. Yes, life did that. I was announced, now presenting the young woman redefining entrepreneurship for women in poverty, Olivia M. The room went silent. He was there, my father. I could see it in his eyes. He recognized me instantly. He stood up. He whispered, "Olivia?" I said nothing. I just nodded and smiled. Because at that moment, I wasn't a lost girl anymore. I was a woman who turned pain into power, a woman who found herself and became more than they ever imagined. There are moments that feel like fiction, even when you're living them. Standing on that stage, staring into the eyes of the man who brought me into this world and then lost me, was one of those moments. The president, my father, didn't say much. He didn't need to. His eyes said everything. Shock, regret, recognition, but more than anything, fear. Fear that I had come to destroy everything he built with one truth. I stepped down from the stage, walked straight past him, and out of the building. I wasn't ready, not yet, not for explanations, not for apologies. But my silence was loud enough. He reached out the very next day. He didn't send guards or officials. He came himself. No cameras, no politics, just a man, aged by guilt, sitting across from the daughter he never raised. "Olivia," he began, his voice trembling, "I searched for you for years. We were told you died, that you drowned during the abduction. I blamed myself every single day. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because I realized something. He wasn't the villain I imagined. He was just a broken father in a powerful suit. He told me everything about the night I was taken, how the country panicked, how enemies used the moment to weaken his leadership, how political lies buried the truth and me. I listened, but I didn't forgive him, not yet. Forgiveness isn't a handshake. It's a journey, and I was still walking mine. For the next few months, we met privately, slowly, carefully, not as father and daughter, but as strangers relearning each other. He asked about my childhood, about Mama Essie, about the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if anyone was looking for me. I told him everything, every scar, every lesson, every dream, and he just listened, like a man starving for the sound of his child's voice. One day he asked me, "Do you hate me?" I looked him in the eye and said, "No." But I had to grow up becoming someone you'd regret losing. He nodded, holding back tears. And you did. You became someone I don't even deserve. That was the day the wall between us began to fall. But family isn't just about forgiveness, it's about restoration. I didn't want to just reconnect, I wanted to rewrite the legacy. So I made him an offer, a proposal to collaborate, not as father and daughter, but as partners. I wanted to launch a nationwide program under my company to train and fund 10,000 girls from underserved communities in entrepreneurship, tech, and innovation. He agreed. He called it Olivia's Light. The media loved it. The country celebrated it. But only we knew the real meaning behind that name. It wasn't just a program, it was a symbol of a light that had once gone missing and found its way back. But not everyone was happy. The political world isn't a place for sentiment. There were whispers, rumors that I was illegitimate, that I'd show up with demands, that I was a threat to the power circle. I got anonymous threats. People warned me to back off. Even some of his advisors begged him to keep his distance. But he didn't. Instead, he held a press conference. With the entire country watching, he stood beside me and said, "This is my daughter, the child I thought I lost. She didn't return to take what's mine. She returned to build something greater. And if there's one legacy I'm proud of, it's her." That moment shattered every wall. I thought success was when I built my first company. But true success? That was walking into the world with my name, fully owned, fully known, and still choosing to use it for others. After that, doors flew open. I was invited to speak at the UN. Harvard offered me an honorary degree. Magazines called me the comeback queen. But none of that compared to what came next. A woman came to my office. She looked familiar, like a ghost from a past life. "Mama Essie," I gasped. She smiled through tears. "You didn't think I'd vanish when you found your blood family, did you?" I hugged her so tight I felt my soul settle. She wasn't just my foster mother. She was my guardian angel, and I made sure she never lacked for anything again. I bought her a house, sent her on vacations, made her co-founder of one of my foundations for women caregivers. Because even queens need someone who once bathed them in buckets and told them they were worthy. That year, I wrote a book, Lost, Found, Crowned. It became a bestseller in 42 countries. But the story inside wasn't about power. It was about pain, healing, and rising. People finally saw the full picture, not just the glamour, but the scars. And that's when I knew My story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every forgotten child, every silenced girl, every person who ever wondered if they mattered. Because I once was just a name on a broken bracelet, and now I was a voice loud enough to move nations.